I have $1.37 for soup. Is that enough? The words cut through the diner like a knife through butter. 77 bikers froze mid-bite, their forks suspended in air. The 4-year-old boy stood there, his small hand clutching crumpled bills and pennies, his paper hospital wristband catching the fluorescent light. Before we continue this story, hit that subscribe button right now. And stay with me until the very end, because what happens next will restore your faith in humanity. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see how far the story travels. Now let me tell you what happened next. Mason's coffee cup stopped halfway to his lips. The president of the Iron Brotherhood, MC, had seen a lot in his 48 years on this earth, but nothing quite prepared him for the sight of this tiny kid standing at the edge of their table, his eyes wide and hopeful, his cheeks flushed from what looked like either cold or fever. "Say that again, son," Mason said, his voice gravel rough but gentle. "I have $1.37. Eli repeated, his small voice wavering. "Mama needs soup. She's sick. Is it enough?" The diner had gone completely silent. Not the comfortable silence of people enjoying their meals, but the kind of silence that happens when the world tilts sideways and everyone knows something important is about to happen. Donna, the waitress who'd been serving this crew for the better part of 3 years, moved closer. She'd seen these bikers tip her kids' college fund, seen them pay for strangers' groceries, seen them stop traffic to help a turtle cross the road. But this was different. "Honey," Donna started, but Mason raised his hand slightly. "Where's your mama?" Mason asked, leaning forward. His leather cut creaked, and several of his brothers shifted in their seats, all eyes on the boy. "Motel, room 7. She can't get up." Eli's bottom lip trembled. "She told me to come get soup. She gave me all her money." Mason's jaw tightened. He glanced at the wristband again. "Harper Regional Hospital. Recent, very recent. What's your name?" "Eli. Eli, I'm Mason. These are my brothers." He gestured around the table. "How long has your mama been sick?" 3 days, maybe 4. I don't know." Eli shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Can I get the soup now? She's waiting." Truck Mason's VEP. Man with arms like tree trunks and a beard that could hide small animals cleared his throat. "Boss?" Mason nodded once. "Message received. This wasn't right. None of this was right." "Eli, when did you last eat?" Donna asked, kneeling down to the boy's level. Eli thought about it. "Yesterday, I think. Mama gave me crackers." "Jesus Christ," someone muttered from the back of the table. Mason stood up slowly, his 6'4" frame unfolding like a switchblade. "Donna, get this boy a full meal. Soup, sandwich, milk, whatever he wants, and pack up another full meal to go." "I only have $1.37, Eli said, his voice getting smaller. "Kid, your money's no good here." Mason pulled out his wallet. "Donna put it on my tab, and add 20 meals to go. Hot meals. The good stuff." "Mason," Donna started, "do it." The bells above the diner door chimed, and Deputy Rohr walked in. 6'2", 240 pounds of small-town authority with a chip on his shoulder the size of Texas. His eyes swept the room, landing on Eli, then Mason, then back to Eli. "Well, Rohr said, his hand resting on his belt near his weapon. "What do we have here?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "We have a hungry kid getting a meal," Mason said evenly. "Not really police business." Rohr's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "A 4-year-old kid alone in a diner, that's absolutely police business." He looked at Eli. "Where's your mother, son?" Eli backed up until he bumped into Mason's leg. Mason's hand came down gently on the boy's shoulder. "He said she's sick at the motel," Mason answered. "We're getting them both fed, then we're going to check on her." "You're not doing anything," Rohr said. "This is a welfare check now. Official business." He reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Rohr. I need CPS contacted. I've got an abandoned minor at the Route 40 diner." "He's not abandoned." Truck stood up his chair, scraping against the linoleum. "His mama sent him for food. That's not abandonment, that's desperation." "I'll determine what it is," Rohr snapped, "and I don't remember asking for your input." "Funny," Mason said, his voice deadly calm. "I don't remember seeing anything that requires police intervention. I see a kid whose mama needs help. We're helping." Rohr took a step closer. "You're interfering with official police business." "What business?" Mason didn't move. You walked in here, saw a kid eating a meal that I'm paying for and decided to make it a problem. The only problem I see is you. Right? Three more bikers stood up, then five more. Then the whole table rose like a wave of leather and steel. Donna grabbed Eli's hand. Honey, come with me. Let's get you that soup. I need to talk to that child, Roar said. After he eats, Mason replied. Kid says he hasn't eaten since yesterday. He's eating first. I'm not asking your permission. And I'm not giving it. Mason crossed his arms. He eats first. Then you can do your welfare check. But you're not dragging a hungry 4-year-old out of here before he gets a hot meal in his belly. Roar's hand moved closer to his weapon. You threatening an officer of the law? I'm feeding a hungry kid. If that threatens you, that says more about you than it does about me. The standoff stretched like taffy. Roar's face reddened, his hand twitching near his belt. Mason didn't move, didn't blink, didn't show even a flicker of backing down. Behind him, 76 bikers stood in silent solidarity, a wall of defiance that would make Sparta proud. You know what? Roar finally said. Fine, let the kid eat, but I'm calling this in, and CPS is coming. That motel room better be fit for a child or the boy's going into foster care tonight. Room 7 at the Sunset Motel, Eli's small voice piped up from behind the counter where Donna had taken him. Please don't take me away from Mama. She's just sick. She'll get better. Something flickered across Roar's face. Maybe guilt, maybe annoyance before his professional mask slammed back into place. We'll see about that. He pulled out his radio again. Dispatch also send an ambulance to the Sunset Motel Room 7. Welfare check on an adult female condition unknown. Mason's expression shifted slightly. That was actually the right call, and it surprised him coming from Roar. Dispatch copies. Ambulance en route ET, 12 minutes. CPS has been notified caseworker en route ETA, 30 minutes. Eli started crying. Not loud dramatic sobs, but quiet tears that streaked down his dirt-smudged cheeks as Donna set a bowl of chicken noodle soup in front of him. Hey, Donna said softly, pulling up a chair. It's okay, sweetie. The ambulance is going to help your mama feel better. They're going to take me away, Eli whispered. Mama said if the police come, they take kids away. Mason moved to the counter, sliding onto the stool next to Eli. Roar watched but didn't interfere. Listen to me, Eli, Mason said. I'm not going to let anyone take you away from your mama unless she can't take care of you. And right now she's sick, which means she needs help, not punishment. You understand? Eli looked up at him with eyes too old for his face. You promise. I promise to do everything I can. Now eat your soup. Your mama's waiting for hers. Eli picked up his spoon with shaking hands and started eating. The soup disappeared fast, and Donna brought a grilled cheese sandwich without being asked. Eli ate that too, his small body practically vibrating with hunger that had been ignored too long. Roar leaned against the counter watching. You know his mother probably sent him out here to scam free food. Or, Truck said, his voice tight with controlled anger. She's so sick she can't get up. And her 4-year-old son is trying to keep them both alive with $1.37. But sure, let's assume the worst about a sick woman and a hungry kid. I've seen it before, Roar said. Drug addicts use their kids to panhandle, get people's sympathy, get free handouts. Mason's hands clenched into fists on the counter. You got any evidence of that, or are you just assuming because they're staying at the Sunset? The Sunset Motel was the cheapest place in town. Weekly rates for people living on the edge of society, working poor people between homes, folks who had fallen on hard times and were trying to climb back up. It wasn't glamorous, but it wasn't the crack house Roar was implying. I'm just saying what I've seen, Roar replied. Well, I'm seeing a kid who came in here with exact change asking if it was enough for soup. That's not a scam. That's a child trying to take care of his mother with the only resources he has. Mason turned to Eli. How's the soup, buddy? It's really good, Eli said, his mouth full. Can Mama have the grilled cheese too? Your mama's getting her own meal, Donna assured him. I'm packing it up right now. Extra soup, grilled cheese, some fruit, and I'm throwing in some crackers and peanut butter for later. I can't pay for all that, Eli said. I only have $1.37, I know. Donna smiled. But Mr. Mason here is paying. You just worry about eating and getting that food to your mama. Eli looked at Mason with something like awe. Why are you being so nice? The question hit harder than any punch Mason had ever taken. Why? Because he'd been this kid once 30-odd years ago. Because his mother had been that sick woman and they'd lived in motels just like the Sunset. Because someone had helped them when they needed it most and he'd never forgotten. Because someone was nice to me once when I needed it, Mason said simply. Now I pass it on. The door chimed again and 2 EMTs walked in with a stretcher. We got a call about room 7 at the Sunset. That's my mama. Eli jumped off his stool. Is she okay? Did you check on her? We're heading there now, buddy, the female EMT said kindly. You want to ride with us? Can I? Eli looked at Roar. The deputy hesitated. Protocol said no. Protocol said the kid stayed with law enforcement until CPS arrived. But 77 bikers were watching him, and more importantly, one little boy was looking at him with desperate hope. I'll follow in my cruiser, Roar said finally. You can ride with them. Eli grabbed the bag of food Donna had prepared. I need to bring this to Mama. You hold on to that, the EMT said. We'll make sure she gets it. Mason stood. We're coming too. The hell you are, Roar said. This is official business now. Then arrest me for wanting to make sure a sick woman gets help. Mason pulled out his phone. I'm also calling St. Michael's Hospital and arranging for any medical bills to be covered. And I'm calling a lawyer to make sure this family's rights are protected. You're really going to make this a thing? Roar asked. You made it a thing when you threatened to take a 4-year-old away from his sick mother. Mason hit a speed dial number. Yeah, this is Mason Crawford. I need Jimmy Murphy. Tell him it's urgent. Jimmy, I need you at the Sunset Motel Room 7 right now. CPS is involved, and I need you to make sure a family doesn't get torn apart because they're poor and sick. Yeah, I'll pay your retainer. Just get here. Roar's face went purple. You're interfering with... I'm ensuring due process, Mason cut him off, which is every American's right. Now are we going to stand here arguing, or are we going to go check on Eli's mama? The EMTs were already heading out with Eli. Mason and his crew followed a leather-clad river flowing out of the diner toward their motorcycles. Donna stood in the doorway, wiping her eyes with her apron. The Sunset Motel was 3 miles down Route 40. The bikers made a hell of a procession, 77 motorcycles rumbling through the cold afternoon following an ambulance and a police cruiser. People stopped on the sidewalks to stare. This was the kind of thing that would be talked about in the town for years. Room 7 was on the ground floor corner unit. The door was locked, but Eli had the key on a string around his neck. The EMTs went in first, and what they found made Mason's stomach turn. The woman Harper, according to Eli, was unconscious on the bed, her skin pale and clammy, her breathing shallow. The room was clean but sparse. No food except a half-empty box of crackers. No medications, a duffel bag with some clothes. A backpack that looked like it had seen better days. We need to transport now, the female EMT said, already checking vitals. She's severely dehydrated, fevers 103, possible pneumonia. How long has she been like this? 3 or 4 days, Eli said quietly, clutching his bag of food. She told me she'd get better. She told me not to bother anyone. Okay, buddy, you did the right thing, getting help, the EMT said. We're going to take good care of your mama. They loaded Harper onto the stretcher. She stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. Eli, I'm here, Mama. Eli ran to her side. I got you soup, and these nice people are going to help you. Baby, I told you. Harper's voice was weak. I told you not to. We can't afford. It's taken care of, Mason said, stepping forward. All of it. Medical bills, everything. You just focus on getting better. Harper's eyes found Mason's face. Why? Because that's what we do, Mason said. Now you go with these folks, get fixed up. Your boy will be safe, I promise. CPS is coming, Roar interjected. The child will need to be placed temporarily until... The child will stay with family, a new voice said from the doorway. A woman in her 60s, slightly out of breath, pushed through the crowd of bikers. I'm Eleanor Harper. This is my daughter and my grandson. I've been looking for them for 2 weeks. Everyone froze. Eli's face lit up. Grandma! Eleanor rushed to the stretcher, grabbing her daughter's hand. Harper, oh my God, I've been calling. I've been searching. Phone died, Harper whispered. Couldn't charge it. Lost our place. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. Hush, baby, don't. Eleanor was crying now. We'll fix this. You're going to be okay. She turned to the EMTs. I'm going with her. And I'll take Eli, she added, looking at Roar. Unless you have a problem with a grandmother taking care of her grandson. Roar looked like he wanted to argue, but he couldn't. Not with a legitimate family member stepping up. I'll need to verify your identity. Eleanor Harper, 1247 Oakwood Drive. She pulled out her driver's license. And before you ask, yes, I have room for both of them. Yes, I can provide for them, and yes, I want them home with me where they belong. The EMT started moving the stretcher toward the ambulance. Eli walked alongside, holding his grandmother's hand, still clutching the bag of food. Wait, Mason called out. He walked to Eli and knelt down. You did good today, kid. Real good. You took care of your mama when she needed you. That takes guts. Eli threw his small arms around Mason's neck. Thank you for the soup. Mason hugged him back, feeling something crack open in his chest. Anytime, Eli. Anytime. As the ambulance pulled away, lights flashing but no siren, Harper was stable enough not to need the urgency. Mason stood in the parking lot of the Sunset Motel, surrounded by his brothers, and watched a 4-year-old boy and his grandmother follow his mother to safety. Boss, Truck said quietly, that was something. Yeah, Mason agreed. It was. Roar approached, his expression unreadable. You got lucky today. Luck had nothing to do with it, Mason replied. A kid needed help. We helped. That's not luck, that's humanity. She could have been a junkie. He could have been part of a scam. But they weren't. Mason turned to face the deputy fully. They were a family in crisis, and instead of seeing that, you saw criminals. That's the difference between us. Roar opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked to his cruiser without another word. The bikers started heading back to their motorcycles, but Mason stood there a moment longer, looking at room 7. The door was still open, and he could see inside the clean but desperate poverty, the careful way Harper had tried to make a home out of a motel room, the evidence of a mother doing everything she could with nothing at all. His phone buzzed. Jimmy Murphy, his lawyer. Just got word from the hospital, Jimmy said. Harper's being admitted. Severe pneumonia, dehydration, malnutrition. They're saying another day and she might not have made it. Mason closed his eyes. But she will make it. Doctors are optimistic. And Eleanor checked out clean, stable home, good income, no red flags. CPS is already closing the case. Eli's going home with his grandmother tonight, and Harper will join them as soon as she's discharged. Good. What about the medical bills? Working on it. The hospital's willing to work with us on a payment plan. I'm also looking into some charitable funds that might cover part of it. Whatever isn't covered, send me the bill, Mason said. All of it. Mason, that could be. I don't care. Send me the bill. He hung up and turned to find Donna standing there, her car parked askew in the motel lot. I brought the rest of those meals you ordered, she said, pointing to her trunk. Figured if Harper can't use them, maybe some of the other folks staying here could. Mason smiled. Donna, you're good people. Learn from the best, she replied, smiling back. You and your boys have been keeping my diner alive for years. Least I can do is pay it forward. Together, they went door to door at the Sunset Motel, handing out hot meals. 20 rooms, 20 families or individuals living on the edge. Some were working poor, juggling 3 jobs to keep a roof overhead. Some were elderly on fixed incomes. Some were people who'd hit hard times and were fighting their way back up. Every single one of them thanked Mason with tears in their eyes. Every single one of them had a story, and every single one of them mattered. By the time they finished, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The bikers regrouped in the parking lot, engines rumbling to life one by one. What now, boss? Truck asked. Mason looked back at the motel, at the lights starting to come on in the windows, at the people inside trying to survive another day. Now, he said, now we remember why we do this. We remember that kid asking if $1.37 was enough for soup. We remember that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help. And we remember that we have the power to change lives, not through violence or intimidation, but through simple human kindness. He swung his leg over his motorcycle and started the engine. And tomorrow, he added over the roar, we figure out how to make sure no kid in this town ever has to choose between eating and taking care of their sick parent again. The Iron Brotherhood rode off into the sunset, 77 motorcycles carrying 77 men who'd just been reminded what it truly meant to be strong. Back at the hospital, Eli sat in the waiting room with his grandmother eating the grilled cheese that was meant for his mother. Harper was in stable condition, getting fluids and antibiotics, already looking better than she had in days. "Grandma," Eli asked between bites. "Yes, sweetheart. Those men with the motorcycles. They were scary looking." Eleanor smiled. "I bet they were. But they weren't scary. They were nice. The big one with the beard, he promised I wouldn't lose Mama. And you didn't." Eli thought about this. Are all scary-looking people actually nice? No, baby. But sometimes the nicest people wear the scariest faces. And sometimes the scariest people wear nice faces. The trick is learning to see what's underneath. Eli nodded seriously, like this was a lesson worth remembering. "I think I want to be like them when I grow up." Nice under a scary face. Eleanor laughed and hugged her grandson close. "I think that's a fine goal." In room 347, Harper drifted in and out of consciousness, aware enough to know she was safe, that Eli was safe, that somehow impossibly everything was going to be okay. She didn't know who the bikers were or why they'd helped, but she knew she owed them everything. And in a diner 3 miles away, Donna poured herself a cup of coffee and sat down in the empty restaurant looking at the table where 77 bikers had sat that afternoon. She thought about Eli's small voice asking if $1.37 was enough. She thought about Mason's immediate response. She thought about how quickly everything had escalated and how close it had come to going very differently. Then she smiled, pulled out her phone, and made a post on the diner's social media page. Today, a 4-year-old boy asked if $1.37 was enough for soup. Before the day was done, he'd found angels in leather, and his mother found the help she desperately needed. Sometimes the roughest-looking people have the softest hearts. The Iron Brotherhood proved that today. Thank you, Mason and crew. This town is better because you're in it. Within an hour, the post had been shared 300 times. By morning, it would go viral. News crews would come calling. The story would spread across the state, then the country, then the world. But that night, none of that mattered. What mattered was that a little boy was safe, his mother was getting the care she needed, and 77 bikers had been reminded that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest waves of change. And somewhere in the darkness, as Mason lay in bed unable to sleep, he thought about his own mother, long gone now, and the stranger who'd bought them groceries when they had nothing. He thought about how that single act had shaped his entire life, had taught him that strength wasn't about intimidation or power. It was about using what you had to help those who had nothing. He thought about Eli's face when he'd asked if $1.37 was enough. And he thought it's always enough when someone cares enough to help you make it stretch. That was the real story, not about bikers or deputies or sick mothers or hungry children. It was about the moment when humanity overrides protocol, when compassion overrules judgment, when a stranger becomes family because they chose to see you as human. $1.37 for soup. It wasn't nearly enough to buy a meal, but it was more than enough to change the world. Mason's phone started buzzing at 4:47 a.m., then again at 4:52. By 5:15, it hadn't stopped. "What the hell?" he muttered, grabbing it off the nightstand. 63 missed calls, 214 text messages. His voicemail was full. He opened the first message. It was from Truck's old lady Maria. "Your diner story is everywhere. Channel 7 wants an interview." The second was from his sister in Phoenix. "When were you going to tell me you're famous? CNN just showed your picture." Mason sat up fast enough to make his head spin. He opened his news app and there it was, top story, "Biker gang save his sick mother and hungry child viral, post inspires nation." "We're not a gang," he said to his phone, but kept reading. Donna's post had exploded, shared 400,000 times. Every major news outlet had picked it up. Someone had gotten photos of the bikers at the Sunset Motel handing out meals. Another photo showed Eli hugging Mason. The comment sections were on fire, half the country calling them heroes, the other half arguing about whether bikers could be trusted, whether this was staged, whether the whole thing was a publicity stunt. His phone rang again. This time he answered. "Mason, it's Jimmy." His lawyer sounded wide awake despite the hour. "Have you seen the news?" "Just woke up to it." "Good, because I need you to not talk to anyone. No interviews, no statements, nothing until we discuss strategy." "Strategy for what? I helped a kid. That's not illegal." "It's not, but there are complications." Jimmy paused. "I got a call 20 minutes ago from a man claiming to be Eli's father. He's demanding to know where his son is, and he's threatening to sue everyone involved for parental interference. Mason was fully awake now. Harper didn't mention a father. Most women in her situation don't. I did some digging. His name is Derek Sutton. He's got a record. Assault, domestic violence, violated restraining order. The restraining order expired 6 months ago, and he's been looking for Harper ever since. Jesus Christ. It gets worse. He's got a lawyer, a real shark, and they're claiming Harper kidnapped Eli, that Derek has legal custody rights, and that anyone who helped Harper is complicit in parental alienation. Mason's grip tightened on the phone. Can he do that? He can try. Whether it'll stick is another matter. But Mason, you need to be careful. This guy is dangerous, and now thanks to the viral story, he knows exactly where Harper and Eli are. I'm heading to the hospital. I figured you'd say that. I'm already on my way. Don't engage with Derek if he shows up. Let me handle it. Mason hung up and was dressed in under 2 minutes. He sent a group text to his core crew. Emergency, St. Michael's Hospital. Now, bring everyone. By the time he reached the hospital, 37 bikers were already in the parking lot. More were arriving by the minute. Truck met him at the entrance. We got a problem. Yeah, Eli's father is coming. The one who put that restraining order on Harper's record. That's the one. Then he's not getting anywhere near that kid. Truck cracked his knuckles. We'll make sure of it. They walked into the hospital lobby and immediately drew stairs. Morning shift nurses whispered behind the desk. A security guard approached nervously. Gentlemen, visiting hours don't start until 8. We're here to make sure a patient and her son stay safe, Mason said calmly. We're not causing trouble, but we're not leaving either. The guard looked at the growing number of bikers filling the lobby and made a calculation. Let me call my supervisor. You do that. Eleanor appeared from the elevator looking exhausted but relieved. She spotted Mason and hurried over. Thank God you're here. Harper's awake and asking for you. How is she? Better, weak but coherent. The doctors say she'll make a full recovery. Eleanor's voice dropped. She told me about Derek. She's terrified he'll find them. He already has. He knows they're here. Eleanor's face went pale. Oh God, Eli is safe. Where is he? Upstairs with Harper, room 347. But you can't. Mason was already moving toward the elevator. Truck and 4 others followed. The security guard made a half-hearted attempt to stop them, but Mason's expression made it clear that wasn't happening. Room 347 was quiet when they entered. Harper was propped up in bed, an IV in her arm, looking like she'd been through hell, but was slowly climbing back out. Eli was curled up in a chair beside her, still wearing yesterday's clothes, his head resting on her bed. Harper's eyes widened when she saw Mason. You came. Told you I would. Mason pulled up a chair. We need to talk about Derek. Harper's whole body went rigid. How do you know about... He called my lawyer. He knows you're here. He's claiming parental rights. No. Harper tried to sit up straighter and winced. He can't. I left him for a reason. He hurt me. He scared Eli. I got the restraining order and left, but it expired and I couldn't afford to renew it, and her voice broke. I've been running for 6 months. That's why we were at the Sunset. I couldn't risk renting anywhere that required ID verification. I couldn't risk him finding us. Eli stirred, his eyes opening. Mama, it's okay, baby. Harper smoothed his hair. Go back to sleep. Is the scary man coming? Everyone in the room froze. What scary man? Mason asked gently. Eli sat up, rubbing his eyes. Daddy, he's scary. He yells and breaks things and makes Mama cry. He's not coming here, Harper said, but her voice shook. I won't let him. You don't have to let him do anything, Mason said. That's why we're here. Harper looked at the bikers surrounding her hospital bed. These rough, intimidating men who'd shown her more kindness in 24 hours than most people had shown her in years. Why are you doing this? She whispered. You don't even know me. Don't have to know you to know what's right. Mason leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. My lawyer is filing an emergency protective order. We're going to document everything your injuries, Derek's record, Eli's statement. We're going to make sure that even if Derek shows up with a team of lawyers, he doesn't get within 100 feet of either of you. I can't afford, already taken care of, every penny, legal fees, medical bills, all of it. Harper started crying. Not delicate tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that shook her whole frame. Eleanor rushed to her side and Eli climbed onto the bed to hug his mother. Why? Harper kept asking. Why would you do this for us? Mason stood and walked to the window. The sun was coming up, painting the parking lot in shades of gold. Down below, more motorcycles were arriving. His brothers, his family showing up because he'd asked them to. 28 years ago, he said quietly, my old man used to beat my mother. Beat her so bad she couldn't get out of bed some days. We lived in motels just like the sunset, running from him, trying to stay ahead. I was about Eli's age. I remember being hungry. I remember being scared. I remember thinking nobody cared. He turned back to Harper. But someone did care. A truck driver at a rest stop bought us food and gave my mother money for a motel room. Didn't ask questions, didn't judge, just helped. Said his daughter had been in a similar situation and he'd wished someone had helped her sooner. Mason's jaw tightened. She didn't make it. Her husband killed her before anyone could intervene. So this truck driver, he made it his mission to help every woman and kid he came across who might be running from the same thing. The room was completely silent. That man saved our lives, Mason continued. Gave us enough money to get 3 states away to start over. My mother eventually got on her feet, got us into a real apartment. She passed away 5 years ago, but before she did, she made me promise to do for others what that truck driver did for us. He looked at Eli. So yeah, kid, I know exactly what you're going through, and I'm not going to let your story end the way it almost ended for me and my mom. Harper covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. The moment shattered when Mason's phone buzzed. A text from the hospital security. Man at front desk demanding to see Harper Bennett and son. Claims he's the father. Getting aggressive. He's here, Mason said. Truck was already moving. How many guys you want down there? All of them. They left Eleanor and 2 bikers, Smoke and Dagger, both fathers themselves, in the room with Harper and Eli. The rest headed downstairs. The lobby had transformed into a standoff. Derek Sutton stood at the front desk, 6'1", and built like he spent his life in a gym, his face red with anger. Next to him was a man in an expensive suit, his lawyer, presumably. Facing them were 2 hospital security guards who looked like they'd rather be literally anywhere else. And behind them, filling the lobby, standing in formation like an army, were 73 bikers. Derek saw them and his expression shifted from anger to something that might have been fear before his ego slammed the mask back into place. This is harassment, his lawyer said immediately. My client has every right to see his son. Your client has a history of domestic violence, Jimmy Murphy said, appearing from nowhere with a briefcase and the calm confidence of a man who'd won harder cases than this, and currently has no legal custody rights. So no, he doesn't have any right to be here. I'm the boy's father, and Harper Bennett is his mother with primary custody, which was never legally challenged or revoked. Jimmy pulled out paperwork. Furthermore, I've just filed an emergency protective order on behalf of Ms. Bennett and her minor son, citing your history of assault and the expired restraining order that you violated 3 times before it lapsed. Derek lunged forward. Mason moved faster, stepping between Derek and the desk. I wouldn't, Mason said quietly. Get out of my way. No. Derek's hands clenched into fists. His lawyer grabbed his arm. Derek, don't. That's assault. I want to see my son. Then you should have thought about that before you put your ex-wife in the hospital, Truck said from Mason's left. I never... Derek stopped. That was years ago. I've changed. Have you? Jimmy pulled out more papers. Because I have police reports from 3 different jurisdictions showing you were arrested for bar fights, assault with a deadly weapon, and violating a protective order, all within the last 18 months. That doesn't sound like someone who's changed. Derek's face went purple. You don't know anything about my family. I know your family ran from you, Mason said. I know your 4-year-old son is terrified of you. I know your ex-wife got pneumonia because she was so desperate to hide from you that she couldn't afford proper shelter or food. That tells me everything I need to know. You're brainwashing him, Derek shouted. Harper turned my son against me. She's poisoning him. Our Truck suggested, you're exactly as scary as that little boy says you are, and he's smart enough to know it. Derek tried to push past Mason. 3 things happened simultaneously. Mason didn't budge an inch. 6 bikers moved to block Derek's path, and hospital security finally found their courage. Sir, you need to leave, the head guard said. Now, or we're calling the police. Call them, Derek yelled. I have rights. That's my son. You have the right to file a proper custody petition through the courts, Jimmy said calmly, which you're welcome to do, but right now you're trespassing, you're being aggressive, and you're violating the emergency protective order that was filed. He checked his watch, 6 minutes ago, and is now active. That's impossible. You can't file that fast. I can when I have a judge on speed dial and evidence of imminent threat. Jimmy smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. The police are already on their way. You can leave voluntarily or you can leave in handcuffs. Your choice. Derek looked around at the wall of leather and steel surrounding him. His lawyer was already backing toward the door. This isn't over, Derek snarled. I'll get my son back. You can't keep him from me forever. Watch us, Mason said. Derek stormed out, his lawyer hurrying after him. The automatic doors hadn't even closed before sirens could be heard approaching. 2 police cruisers pulled up. 4 officers got out and Mason recognized one of them, Officer Chen, who'd been on the force for 20 years and had a reputation for being fair but tough. Mason Crawford, Chen said, walking into the lobby. Should have known when dispatch said bikers at the hospital, it'd be you and yours. Morning, Chen. We're just making sure a domestic violence victim and her son stay safe. Chen looked around at the assembled bikers, at the nervous security guards, at Jimmy Murphy, with his briefcase full of legal documents. And the man who just left, Derek Sutton, he's the threat. Jimmy handed Chen a copy of the protective order. This was just filed and served. He showed up anyway, got aggressive, refused to leave. Chen read the document, his expression darkening. I know Sutton. Arrested him twice myself. Slippery bastard, always gets the charges dropped. He looked at Mason. How's the mother and kid? Recovering. She had pneumonia, dehydration, malnutrition. They're stable now. Good. Chen turned to his fellow officers. Radio dispatch. I want a car outside this hospital until further notice. If Derek Sutton comes within 500 feet of this building, arrest him. One of the younger officers spoke up. Sarge, that's a lot of manpower for protecting a domestic violence victim and a 4-year-old child. Chen's voice could have cut glass. Yeah, it is. Do it anyway. The officer radioed it in. Chen turned back to Mason. You planning on staying until we know they're safe? Then I'll leave you to it. But Mason, Chen's expression softened slightly. Be careful. Guys like Sutton, they don't give up easy, and they don't fight fair. Neither do we. After the police left, the lobby slowly returned to a tense version of normal. Nurses whispered among themselves. Patients stared. The bikers settled into formation, some outside, some in the lobby, some in the hallways. A protective net that Derek Sutton would have to cut through to get to Harper and Eli. Mason went back upstairs to find Harper sitting up in bed, Eleanor beside her, Eli in her lap. They all looked terrified. Is he gone? Harper whispered. For now. Police are posted outside. He tries to come back, they'll arrest him. He won't stop. Harper's voice was hollow. He never stops. That's why I ran. That's why I couldn't tell anyone where we were. He has this way of finding me, of convincing people I'm the problem, that I'm keeping his son from him unfairly. Not this time. Mason pulled up a chair. This time you've got documentation, you have got witnesses, and you've got 77 very motivated individuals making sure he doesn't get near you. Eli looked up at Mason with those 2 old eyes. Will you stay until Daddy's really gone? Mason felt something crack in his chest again. Yeah, kid, I'll stay. The next hours blurred together. News crews arrived at the hospital and were turned away. Derek's lawyer filed a counter motion which Jimmy immediately challenged. Social media exploded with opinions, some supporting the bikers, some calling them vigilantes, some questioning whether the whole thing was real. Donna showed up around noon with bags of food for everyone. Figured you boys would be hungry, she said, distributing sandwiches and coffee. This is all anyone in town is talking about. Half the county wants to help. How? Mason asked. Money, mostly. Someone started a GoFundMe for Harper's medical bills and living expenses. It's already raised $40,000. Harper burst into tears again. Eleanor held her, and Eli patted his mother's hand like he'd done this many times before. Around 2 p.m. something unexpected happened. A woman in her 50s, well-dressed and professional, appeared in the hospital room doorway. Mrs. Bennett, I'm Sarah Coleman from the district attorney's office. Harper went pale. I didn't do anything wrong. I know. I'm here because we have been trying to build a case against Derek Sutton for years, but victims keep recanting or disappearing. You're the first one who stayed put long enough to testify. I didn't stay put, I ran. But now you're here, you're safe, and you have support. I want to prosecute him for the assault charges, for violating the restraining order, for everything he's done. But I need you to work with me. Harper looked at Mason, then at Eli, then back at Sarah. If I testify, he'll kill me. Not if he's in prison. Sarah sat down. Help me put him away, Harper. Help me make sure he can't do this to you or anyone else ever again. I'm scared. I know. But you're also brave. You asked a 4-year-old to get soup with $1.37 because you were too sick to move, but determined to keep him fed. That's not weakness. That's strength. Eli spoke up. Mama, if Daddy's in prison, can we stop running? The question hung in the air like smoke. Harper closed her eyes. When she opened them, something had changed. Okay, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Sarah smiled. Good, we'll keep you safe. I promise. After she left, Harper looked at Mason. Did I just make everything worse? No, he said firmly. You just made everything better. For you, for Eli, and for every other woman Derek might have hurt in the future. Eleanor squeezed her daughter's hand. I'm proud of you, baby. The day wore on. More bikers rotated in and out, maintaining their protective presence. Hospital staff stopped being nervous and started bringing them coffee and donuts. One nurse even asked for a photo, which turned into a dozen staff members wanting photos with the guys who saved that little boy. As evening approached, Eli fell asleep in Harper's hospital bed, his small body finally relaxing after the stress of the day. Harper stroked his hair, her eyes distant. What are you thinking? Mason asked. That for the first time in 6 months, I'm not planning my next escape route. I'm not calculating how much money I need to disappear again. I'm just here, safe. She looked at him. Because of you. Because you were brave enough to ask for help. Even if that help came from a 4-year-old with $1.37, Harper laughed, a broken sound that held more relief than humor. He's a good kid. He's a great kid. Takes after his mom. The moment was interrupted by Truck appearing in the doorway, his expression grim. Boss, we got a problem. Derek's back. And he brought friends. Mason stood. Manny. Looks like his whole crew. Maybe 20 guys. They're in the parking lot making noise trying to provoke us. Don't engage. Let the police handle it. Police are already there. But Derek's being smart, staying just outside the 500-foot perimeter, not technically violating the order. Mason's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You can't protect her forever. I'll get my son back, one way or another. He showed it to Jimmy, who'd been camped in the visitor's lounge working on legal strategies. That's a threat, Jimmy said. Forward it to Officer Chen and to Sarah Coleman. This helps our case. Mason did, then looked at Harper. I need to go deal with this. You'll be safe here. Eleanor's here. Smoke and Dagger are here, and hospital security knows not to let anyone in. Mason, be careful. Derek fights dirty. So do I. He headed downstairs with Truck and found the parking lot transformed into a battlefield waiting to happen. On one side, Derek and about 18 guys who looked like they'd been recruited from the worst bars in 3 counties. On the other side, the Iron Brotherhood, now numbering close to 80 bikers as word had spread, and more had arrived. Between them, a thin line of police officers looking severely outnumbered. Officer Chen spotted Mason and walked over. This is about to get ugly. Not if I can help it. Mason raised his voice. Derek, you want to talk? Let's talk. Just you and me. No crews, no backup. Man to man. Derek laughed. So you can jump me? I don't think so. I'm not the one who needs 20 guys to feel tough. But if you're scared, I understand. Derek's face went red. His boys started making noise, calling him out, questioning his courage. It was a trap, and Derek knew it, but his ego wouldn't let him back down. Fine. You and me, middle of the parking lot, no interference. Mason walked forward. So did Derek. They met in the neutral zone, close enough to see the hatred in each other's eyes. You don't know what you're messing with, Derek hissed. I know exactly what I'm messing with. A coward who beats women and scares children. That's my family. That's a woman and child you terrorized until they'd rather live in a motel and eat crackers than be anywhere near you. That's not family. That's captivity. Derek wished his fist came up fast. Mason was faster, catching it mid-swing and twisting. Derek went down on one knee, crying out. "You swing at me, that's assault," Mason said quietly, in front of 8 cops and about 100 witnesses. "You really want to add that to your record right before your court date?" Derek yanked his hand free, stumbling back. "This isn't over." "Yeah, it is. You just don't know it yet." Mason turned and walked back to his crew, leaving Derek standing there humiliated in front of his people. The crowd dispersed slowly, Derek's crew peeling off first, their leader's pride shattered. The bikers remained maintaining their watch. As night fell, Mason found himself back in Harper's room. She was asleep, Eli curled against her. Eleanor sat in the corner, keeping vigil. "Thank you," Eleanor whispered, "for everything." "Just doing what's right." "No, you're doing more than that. You're giving my daughter hope. You're showing my grandson that not all men are like his father. That matters more than you know." Mason looked at the sleeping pair, mother and son, finally at peace, and thought about the truck driver who'd saved him and his mom 3 decades ago. The circle was complete. The debt was paid. And somewhere he hoped that man knew his kindness had rippled across generations, creating new waves of hope in the darkest places. "Get some rest," he told Eleanor. "We've got watch." She smiled. "I believe you do." Outside in the hallway, his brother stood guard. Downstairs, more maintained their posts. In the parking lot, motorcycles lined up like a fortress wall. And somewhere out there, Derek Sutton was learning that some things, some people were worth fighting for, and that the fight wasn't always won by the loudest or the meanest, but by those who refused to give up on doing what was right. $1.37 for soup. It had bought so much more than a meal. It had bought a second chance. 3 a.m. and Mason's phone buzzed again. This time it was Officer Chen. "Sutton just posted bail. Arrested him 2 hours ago for violating the protective order. Judge set bail at $5,000. Someone paid it. He's out." Mason was on his feet before he finished reading. He'd been dozing in a chair outside Harper's room, and now every instinct screamed danger. "Truck," he said, shaking his VP awake. "Derek's out." "Son of a..." Truck was up alert. "How..." "Someone bailed him. We need more bodies here. Now." Within 20 minutes, the hospital corridors filled with bikers again. Nurses didn't even blink this time. They'd gotten used to the leather-clad guardians haunting their halls. Mason slipped into Harper's room. She was awake, staring at the ceiling. "You heard," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah. He's coming for Eli. I know he is." Her voice shook. "That's what he does. He waits until you think you're safe, and then he strikes." "Let him try." Mason pulled up a chair. "Harper, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" She looked at him with eyes that had trusted the wrong people too many times. "I don't know how to trust anymore." "Fair enough. Then just believe that I'm not leaving until this is over." "Why though?" Harper sat up, wincing. "I keep asking, and you keep saying these noble things about paying it forward and helping people. But there has to be more. Nobody does this much for strangers." Mason was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "My mother died 5 years ago, cancer. Near the end, when she was in hospice, she told me her biggest regret was all the times she didn't ask for help because she was too proud or too scared. She said if she'd asked sooner, maybe we wouldn't have spent years running, hiding, barely surviving." He looked at Harper. "She made me promise that if I ever saw someone in that same situation, trapped, scared, not asking for help because they thought nobody cared, I'd step in. I'd be the person we needed and never had." "Your mom sounds like she was something special." "She was. Tough as nails. Survived things that would have broken most people." Mason's voice roughened. "Eli reminds me of myself at that age, and you remind me of her. So yeah, this is personal." Harper reached out and squeezed his hand. "Thank you." The moment shattered when Eleanor burst into the room, her face white. "Derek's lawyer just served me with emergency custody papers. They're claiming I'm an unfit guardian because I conspired to hide Eli from his father. There's a hearing scheduled for tomorrow morning." "That's impossible," Mason said. "Jimmy filed our motion first. Apparently Derek got a different judge, one who's sympathetic to father's rights." Eleanor's hand shook. "If we lose this hearing, they'll take Eli, put him with Derek while they sort out the custody battle. That could take months." "No," Harper tried to get out of bed and stumbled. Mason caught her. "No, they can't. Derek will hurt him. He'll..." "Easy," Mason steadied her. Nobody's taking Eli anywhere. You can't promise that. Watch me. He pulled out his phone and called Jimmy. We got a problem. Jimmy answered on the first ring. I know, I'm already preparing our response. The hearing's at 9 a.m., Judge Patricia Hendricks presiding. She's known for being tough but fair. What are our chances? Honestly, 50-50. Derek's lawyer is good. He's going to paint Harper as an unstable woman who kidnapped her son and brainwashed him against his father. He'll use the expired restraining order against her claim she let it lapse because Derek wasn't really a threat. That's bullshit. That's strategy. We need to be ready to counter every point. Jimmy paused. Mason, this is going to get ugly. Are you prepared for that? Whatever it takes. After he hung up, Harper looked at him with something close to despair. You should walk away. This isn't your fight. Like hell it isn't. Derek's lawyer will come after you too. He'll say you're a biker gang leader who's manipulating a vulnerable woman for publicity or money or God knows what else. They'll twist everything you've done into something sinister. Let them try. Eleanor put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Harper, honey, not everyone runs when things get hard. Some people stay. Mason's staying. Harper broke down and Eli stirred in the bed beside her. Mama, I'm okay, baby, just tired. Is Daddy coming? The question froze everyone in the room. No, Harper lied. Daddy's not coming. But Eli wasn't fooled. At 4 years old, he'd already learned to read the fear in his mother's eyes. He is, I can tell. Mason knelt by the bed. Eli, remember when I promised you'd be safe? Yeah. That promise still stands. Your daddy might show up in court, but he's not taking you anywhere. You got me. Eli studied his face, then nodded slowly. Okay. Now get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. As Mason stood to leave, Eli grabbed his hand. Will you be there in court? Front row, kid. Me and all my brothers. That seemed to satisfy him. Eli closed his eyes and within minutes his breathing evened out. Outside the room, truck was waiting. Boss, we got another situation. Derek posted something on Facebook. It's going viral. He showed Mason the phone. Derek's post read, to the biker gang holding my son hostage at St. Michael's Hospital. You've made this personal. I'm a father fighting for his rights. You're criminals trying to steal my child. The truth will come out in court tomorrow. See you there. Below the post were hundreds of comments. Some supported Derek, calling him a victimized father. Others called him out, linking to news stories about his record. The whole thing was a powder keg waiting to explode. He's trying to control the narrative, Mason said, making himself the victim. It's working. Half the people commenting think we're the bad guys. Then we tell our side. Mason pulled out his own phone and opened the Iron Brotherhood's official page. He'd never been big on social media, but desperate times called for desperate measures. He typed, tomorrow a hearing will determine if a 4-year-old boy gets sent to live with a man who has 3 assault convictions and multiple protective order violations. We're not holding anyone hostage. We're protecting a child from documented abuse. The only criminals here are the ones trying to manipulate the legal system to regain access to their victims. See you in court. He hit post and watched it spread like wildfire. Within minutes, hundreds of shares. Within an hour, thousands. The comment section exploded with both support and vitriol, but the message was out there. His phone rang. It was Donna from the diner. Mason, what can I do to help? Show up tomorrow, courthouse 9 a.m. Bring anyone you can. I'll spread the word. She did. By dawn, Mason's phone was flooded with messages from the people he barely knew, all saying they'd be at the courthouse. Local business owners, regular customers from the diner, people who'd seen the viral posts and wanted to help. Even some of Harper's former co-workers from before she'd started running. At 8 a.m., Harper was discharged from the hospital against medical advice. She was still weak, still recovering, but she refused to let the hearing happen without her. I'm testifying, she said, pulling on clothes Eleanor had brought. They need to hear from me. You can barely stand, Eleanor protested. I don't care. This is my son. I'm fighting for him. They arrived at the courthouse at 8:45. What they found made Mason stop in his tracks. The steps were packed. Easily 300 people, maybe more. Bikers, yes, his entire MC had shown up along with members from 3 neighboring chapters. But also regular folks, parents with their kids, women holding signs that said, protect survivors and believe mothers and children first. men wearing shirts that read, "Real fathers don't abuse." On the other side of the steps, a smaller group had gathered. Derek and his crew, along with a handful of supporters carrying signs about fathers' rights and parental alienation. The two groups eyed each other across an invisible line. The tension was thick enough to choke on. Officer Chen and a dozen other cops formed a barrier between them. "Let's keep this peaceful, people. This is a courthouse, not a battlefield." Mason helped Harper up the steps. She was trembling, whether from weakness or fear, he couldn't tell. Eli clung to Eleanor's hand, his eyes wide at the crowd. Inside the courthouse, they were directed to courtroom 3B. The room filled quickly. Harper and Eleanor in front, Mason and his core crew in the rows behind them, and a sea of supporters filling every available seat. The overflow crowd lined the hallways outside. Derek sat on the opposite side with his expensive lawyer, a man named Marcus Graves, who looked like he charged $500 an hour and earned every penny. Derek was dressed in a button-down shirt and slacks, clean-shaven, looking nothing like the thug who'd shown up at the hospital. His transformation was calculated and complete. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Hendricks. Everyone stood as the judge entered. She was in her late 60s, gray-haired and sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that commanded instant respect. "Be seated. We're here for emergency custody proceedings in the matter of Sutton versus Bennett. Mr. Graves, you filed this motion. Present your case." Graves stood, smoothing his tie. "Your Honor, my client Derek Sutton is a loving father who has been systematically denied access to his son by the child's mother, Harper Bennett. Ms. Bennett obtained a restraining order based on false allegations, then allowed it to expire because she knew the claims wouldn't hold up to scrutiny. She then kidnapped the child and went into hiding for 6 months, preventing any contact between father and son." "Objection." Jimmy stood. "The term kidnapping is inflammatory and inaccurate. Ms. Bennett is the custodial parent and has every right to relocate." "Sustained." Mr. Graves, stick to facts, not rhetoric. "My apologies, Your Honor. The facts are these: Derek Sutton has not seen his son in 6 months. He has attempted to locate them through legal channels, but was blocked at every turn. When he finally found them, he discovered his son being held at a hospital, surrounded by members of a motorcycle gang known for criminal activity." "Objection," Jimmy's voice rose. "The Iron Brotherhood MC is a registered nonprofit organization with no criminal record. This is defamation." "Sustained." Mr. Graves, another outburst like that, and I'll hold you in contempt. Graves didn't look fazed. "Your Honor, I'm simply requesting that the child be placed in his father's care while the custody matter is properly adjudicated. Mr. Sutton has stable housing, steady employment, and a strong support system. Can Ms. Bennett say the same?" All eyes turned to Harper. She stood, her legs shaking. "Your Honor, may I speak?" Judge Hendricks studied her. "You may, but I'd advise you to let your attorney handle this." "I need to say this myself." Harper's voice was barely above a whisper. "Derek Sutton sent me to the hospital twice. Once with broken ribs. Once with a concussion so bad I couldn't remember my own name for 3 days. I got the restraining order because I was terrified. I let it expire because I couldn't afford to renew it, and I hoped that if I just disappeared, he'd move on." "Your Honor, there's no evidence," Graves started. "I have hospital records," Jimmy interrupted, pulling out a thick folder. "Documented injuries, police reports, witness statements, all of which corroborate Ms. Bennett's testimony." Judge Hendricks took the folder, flipping through it. Her expression darkened with each page. "Mr. Graves, your client has 3 assault convictions on his record. Minor incidents, Your Honor, bar fights, nothing involving his family." "Nothing documented," Jimmy corrected, "because Ms. Bennett was too afraid to press charges. But the injuries are real. The pattern is clear." Derek stood suddenly. "Your Honor, I made mistakes, I admit that. But I've changed. I've been in anger management. I've been sober for 8 months. I just want a chance to be a father to my son." "You had that chance," Harper said, her voice growing stronger. "You had it every day when you came home, and I prayed you'd be in a good mood. When I walked on eggshells trying not to set you off. When I made excuses for the bruises and told Eli that Daddy just got upset sometimes, but he still loved us. I never touched Eli. You terrified him." Harper's voice cracked. "He was 3 years old and he learned to hide in the closet when you started yelling. He learned to be perfectly quiet so you wouldn't notice him. That's not a childhood, that's survival." The courtroom was dead silent. Judge Hendricks leaned forward. Mr. Sutton, I'm going to ask your son a question. Bailiff, please bring the child forward. Your Honor, he's only 4, Graves protested. I'm aware of his age, Bailiff. Eli was brought to the front. He looked tiny standing before the judge's bench, his hand still gripping Eleanor's. Judge Hendricks spoke gently. Eli, my name is Judge Hendricks. I just want to ask you a few questions, okay? Eli nodded. Do you know why you're here today? Because Daddy wants me to live with him. And how do you feel about that? Eli's bottom lip trembled. I don't want to. He's scary. Can you tell me why he's scary? He yells really loud, and he breaks things, and he makes Mama cry. Eli's voice got smaller, and one time he threw a chair and it almost hit me. Derek stood again. He doesn't remember it, right? Mr. Sutton, sit down and be quiet or I'll have you removed from this courtroom, Judge Hendricks snapped. She turned back to Eli. Thank you for being brave and telling me the truth. You can go back to your grandmother now. After Eli was seated, the judge sat back in her chair. I've heard enough. Here's my ruling. Emergency custody is denied. Eli Bennett will remain in the care of his mother and grandmother. Furthermore, I'm extending the protective order for 1 year and ordering supervised visitation only if and when Ms. Bennett feels comfortable allowing it. Derek exploded. This is bullshit. You can't. I can and I will. Bailiff removed Mr. Sutton from the courtroom. Derek tried to resist, but 3 bailiffs converged on him. As they dragged him out, he screamed at Harper. This isn't over. You hear me? I'll get my son back. The doors slammed shut, cutting off his threats. Judge Hendricks looked at Harper. Ms. Bennett, I'm also ordering Mr. Sutton to pay child support retroactive to 6 months ago, and I'm referring this case to the DA for potential criminal charges related to the protective order violations. Harper was crying, but this time they were tears of relief. Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank you. To be a super. Thank the people who stood up for you when you couldn't stand up for yourself. She looked at Mason. Mr. Crawford, I don't usually condone vigilante behavior, but what you did protecting this family, that took courage. Don't make me regret praising you by doing anything stupid. No, ma'am, Mason said. Good. This hearing is adjourned. The courtroom erupted in applause. People were hugging, crying, celebrating. Harper collapsed into Eleanor's arms and Eli wrapped himself around both of them. Mason felt a hand on his shoulder. It was Officer Chen. You did good, Crawford. Real good. Just did what needed doing. Outside the courthouse, the celebration continued. People were high-fiving, cameras were flashing, and someone had brought a cake that said justice for Eli. But Mason's instincts were screaming. Something wasn't right. Derek had gone too quietly after that initial outburst. Men like him didn't just accept defeat. He pulled Truck aside. Get everyone back to the hospital. Now, Shermano. Why we won? Call it a gut feeling. Derek's too quiet. They mobilized fast, the celebration cutting short as bikers headed to their rides. Mason got Harper, Eleanor, and Eli into Jimmy's car safer than the hospital for now and sent them to Eleanor's house with an escort of 6 bikers. Then he headed to the hospital with the rest of his crew. They arrived to find Derek's truck in the parking lot. The driver's side door was open. The truck was empty. He came here, Truck said, looking for them. Mason's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You think you won? You took everything from me, 'cause now I'm taking something from you. Spread out, Mason ordered. Find him. They searched the parking lot, the lobby, the floors. Nothing. Derek was gone. Then Mason's phone rang. It was Eleanor, her voice panicked. Mason, someone tried to break into my house. The bikers chased him off, but Eli saw him through the window. It was Derek. Is everyone okay? We're fine, but Eli's hysterical. He's convinced Derek's going to come back. Lock every door and window. I'm sending more people. He dispatched 10 more bikers to Eleanor's address, then turned to Truck. We need to find Derek before he does something stupid. He's already doing something stupid. Question is, how stupid? The answer came 2 hours later. Derek had barricaded himself in Harper's old motel room at the Sunset. He was armed, someone had spotted a gun, and he was posting live videos to Facebook ranting about corrupt judges and biker gangs and a system that protected women who lied. He's having a breakdown, Jimmy said, watching the video on his phone. This is bad, really bad. Police had surrounded the motel. SWAT was en route. Negotiators were trying to make contact. Mason knew he shouldn't go, knew it was dangerous, but he went anyway. He talked his way past the police perimeter. Chen vouched for him and approached the motel room with a megaphone the negotiator handed him. "Derek, it's Mason. Come out, let's talk." "Talk? You destroyed my life. You destroyed your own life when you put your hands on Harper. This is just consequences catching up. I loved her. I loved my son. Love doesn't look like fear, Derek. Love doesn't send people to the hospital. You know that." There was a long silence, then, "I just wanted my family back." "You can't get them back. Not like this, but you can stop making things worse. Come out, get help. Maybe someday Eli will want to know you, maybe not. But this," Mason gestured at the armed standoff, "this guarantees he'll remember you as the scary man who tried to hurt his mama. Is that really how you want him to remember you?" Another long silence. The motel room door opened slowly. Derek stepped out, hands up, gun left. Inside, he was crying. "I just wanted to be a good day," he said as police swarmed him, pulling him to the ground, cuffing him. "Then you should have tried being a good person first," Mason said quietly. Derek was arrested and charged with multiple felonies. The DA, Sarah Coleman, called it one of the strongest domestic violence cases she'd ever seen. Between the protective order violations, the attempted break-in, and the armed standoff, Derek was looking at serious prison time. 3 days later, Harper stood in Eleanor's kitchen watching Eli play in the backyard. He was laughing, actually laughing in a way she hadn't heard in over a year. "Is it really over?" she asked Mason, who'd stopped by to check on them. "The legal part mostly, yeah. Derek's going away for a while. The emotional part, that takes longer. I don't know how to thank you. You already did. You survived. You fought back. You protected your son. That's all the thanks I need." Harper hugged him and Mason hugged her back, feeling that same crack in his chest that appeared every time he looked at this family he'd helped save. As he walked to his motorcycle, Eli ran up to him. "Mason, wait!" Mason turned. Eli held out his hand. In it were 4 quarters, a dime, and 2 pennies. $1.37, he said. "For soup, I want you to have it, in case you ever need it." Mason felt his eyes burning. He knelt down and took the money. "I'll keep it safe. Promise. And when someone else needs soup, you can give it to them, like you gave it to Mama. You're a smart kid, you know that." Eli smiled, that too-old expression finally giving way to something that looked like childhood. "Mama says I get it from her." "She's right." As Mason rode away, the money tucked safely in his pocket, he thought about circles and debts and kindness that echoed across time. Somewhere, a truck driver who'd helped a desperate woman and her son decades ago had started something that would never stop rippling outward. And now, somewhere in the future, another child would ask if $1.37 was enough for soup. And someone would remember the story and say yes, it was always enough. The $1.37 sat on Mason's dresser for 3 days before his phone started ringing with numbers he didn't recognize. The first was a woman from Oregon. "Is this Mason Crawford, the biker who helped that little boy?" "Yeah, that's me. My name is Patricia Winters. I saw your story and Her voice broke. "I need help. My daughter is in a situation like Harper's. She's hiding from her ex in a shelter, and he found out where she is. She has 2 kids. They're 6 and 8. I don't know what to do." Mason sat down heavily. "Where are you, Portland? But I can't. The shelter won't let me see her. Says it compromises safety. My grandkids are terrified and I can't even hug them. Give me the shelter's number. I'll make some calls." "You do that for people you don't even know." Mason looked at the coins on his dresser. "Yeah, I would." He hung up and immediately called a contact in Portland, a biker named Cage, who ran a chapter up there. Within 2 hours, Patricia's daughter had protection, a pro bono lawyer, and a safe house that her ex would never find. Within a week, she had full custody, and her ex had a restraining order that actually had teeth. The second call came from Texas, then Florida, then Michigan. Each one was the same, a desperate person who'd seen the viral story and thought maybe, just maybe, someone would care enough to help. "Boss, we need to talk," Truck said, walking into Mason's garage where he was working on his bike. "My phone hasn't stopped. Neither has Smokes or Daggers. People are reaching out from all over the country asking for help." "How many people?" "Last count, 347. And that's just the ones calling us directly. Mason set down his wrench. 300 bifays. And it's not just domestic violence cases. It's people who can't afford medical bills, single parents who can't feed their kids, homeless vets who need a hand up. Everyone saw what we did for Harper and Eli, and they're thinking maybe we can help them too. We can't help everyone. I know that, you know that, but try telling that to a mother who hasn't eaten in 3 days so her kids could. Truck pulled out his phone and showed Mason a message. This woman's in Nebraska. Her husband died, insurance won't pay out. She's about to lose her house. She's got 4 kids under 10. What do we tell her? Mason read the message and felt the weight of it settle on his shoulders. We tell her we'll try. Mason, we're bikers, not a charity organization. Then maybe it's time we became one. The idea took root fast. Within a week, Mason had filed paperwork to establish the Iron Brotherhood Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to helping families in crisis. Jimmy Murphy handled the legal work pro bono. Donna offered the diner as a meeting space. Eleanor, who'd worked in nonprofit management before retiring, volunteered to help set up the infrastructure. You're really doing this, Harper said when Mason told her. She was at Eleanor's house, stronger now, her color returning, her eyes less haunted. We have to. People need help, and we can provide it. But the foundation needs money. Where's that coming from? The GoFundMe for your medical bills raised $40,000. You only needed 12. That's $28,000 left over. You want to donate it to help others? Harper's eyes filled with tears. Yes, God, yes, take it all. The foundation launched with Harper's donated funds and immediately started taking cases. They helped the woman in Nebraska keep her house. They got the family in Texas protection from an abusive ex. They paid medical bills for a kid in Kentucky who needed surgery his parents couldn't afford. Each case brought more attention. Each success brought more requests for help. Within a month, the foundation had helped 43 families. Within 2 months, the number hit 112. But success brought problems. Mason, we need to talk about capacity, Eleanor said at a foundation meeting. We're getting 500 requests a week. We can't possibly help them all. So we prioritize, Mason said. Life-threatening situations first, kids in danger, medical emergencies. That still leaves hundreds of people we're turning away. Then we need more resources, more volunteers, more money. Truck spoke up. I got an idea. What if we expand the MC, not just our chapter, but reach out to clubs across the country? Get them involved. Each chapter takes on their region. You think other clubs will go for it? I think after seeing what we did, a lot of them will want in. Bikers get a bad rap. This is a chance to change that. Mason thought about it. The Iron Brotherhood had always been his crew, his family. Expanding meant bringing in people he didn't know, didn't control, but it also meant helping more people. Do it, he said. The expansion happened fast. Truck reached out to clubs in 20 states. 15 said yes immediately. 5 more came on board within a week. Suddenly, the Iron Brotherhood Foundation wasn't just one chapter in one town. It was a network of over 2,000 bikers across the country, all committed to the same mission. But not everyone was happy about it. Mason got the first threatening letter on a Tuesday. It was hand-delivered to the diner tucked under the door when Donna arrived to open at 5 a.m. You're making enemies, Crawford. People don't like what you're doing. Watch your back. No signature, no return address, just a threat. The second letter came Thursday. This one was more specific. The foundation is a scam. You're stealing money from desperate people. We're watching you. The third came Saturday, and it made Mason's blood run cold. That little boy and his mama aren't as safe as you think. Accidents happen. He called Officer Chen immediately. This is the third letter. Chen examined the paper. Any idea who's sending them? Could be Derek's people. Could be someone else who doesn't like what we're doing. We'll investigate, but without a signature or evidence. I know, just do what you can. Mason paused. I need protection for Harper and Eli. Already on it. I've got patrols going past Eleanor's house every hour. Not enough. I want eyes on them 24/7. Chen sighed. Mason, I don't have the manpower for... Then I'll provide it. My guys will do rotating shifts. Just don't arrest us for parking outside her house. Fine, but you see anything suspicious? You call me. Don't handle it yourself. Mason agreed, but he wasn't sure he could keep that promise. The protection detail started that night. 2 bikers on Eleanor Street at all times, switching out every 6 hours. Harper protested at first, said it was too much, too invasive, but after Eli asked why the mailman was taking pictures of their house, she stopped arguing. The mailman turned out to be a private investigator hired by a journalist writing an expose on the foundation. The journalist wanted to prove it was a scam, that Mason was pocketing donations, that the whole thing was a publicity stunt. "Let him investigate," Eleanor said. "Our books are clean. Every penny is accounted for." "It's not about truth," Mason replied. "It's about the story. Guy wants to make a name for himself by taking down the feel-good biker charity. Facts won't matter if he spins it right." He was proven correct 2 weeks later when the article published. The headline read, "Biker Charity Under Scrutiny, Where is the Money Really Going?" The article cherry-picked facts, implied impropriety where there was none, and punted Mason as a con artist using Harper's story to enrich himself. It mentioned the $1.37 Eli had given back to Mason and suggested he'd kept it as a trophy. The backlash was immediate. The foundation's donation page was flooded with angry comments. People who'd praised them 2 months ago were now calling them frauds. News outlets picked up the story. Within 48 hours, donations dried up completely. "We need to respond," Jimmy said. "How anything we say looks defensive. Then we show them. Open up the books. Full transparency. Every donation, every expense, every family we've helped." They did exactly that. Eleanor spent 3 days compiling a comprehensive report showing where every dollar had gone. They published it on the foundation website along with testimonials from the families they'd helped complete, with names, photos, and permission to share their stories. Patricia Winters from Oregon made a video. "The Iron Brotherhood saved my daughter's life. They didn't ask for money. They didn't want publicity. They just helped. Anyone calling them frauds didn't see my grandkids' faces when they realized they were finally safe." The woman from Nebraska whose house they'd saved made a video. So did the family from Texas. So did 40 other families, one after another, all testifying to the real, tangible help they'd received. The videos went viral. Within a week, the tide turned again. The journalist who'd written the hit piece was fired after his editor discovered he'd fabricated quotes. Donations poured back in, bigger than before. Within a month, the foundation had raised over $300,000. But the damage was done in other ways. Harper started getting death threats. People who believed the original article, who thought she was part of the scam, who hated her for reasons that made no sense. Someone threw a brick through Eleanor's window with a note attached. "Liars deserve what's coming." Eli stopped playing outside. He stopped sleeping through the night. The fear that had started to fade after Derek's arrest came roaring back. "This is my fault," Mason said to Harper. "I pushed the foundation too hard, too fast. Made us too visible." "You gave people hope," Harper replied. "That's not your fault. But Eli's paying the price. Eli's alive because of you. The nightmares will pass. The fear will fade. But if you'd done nothing, if you'd walked away that day in the diner, we'd both be dead or worse." She grabbed his hand. "Don't you dare regret saving us." Mason wanted to believe her. But when Eli woke up screaming for the 4th night in a row, he wondered if maybe saving them meant more than just that first day. Maybe it meant continuing to protect them from the consequences of that rescue. The 5th threatening letter arrived with a specific demand: shut down the foundation or the boy pays. This time Chen took it seriously. "This is a credible threat. We need to move Harper and Eli into protective custody." "No," Harper said when they told her. "I won't run again. I won't hide. That's how we ended up at the Sunset Motel in the first place." "Harper, this isn't Derek. This is someone who's escalating. The threats are getting more specific." "I don't care. Eli just started feeling safe. I won't take that away from him." "Then we increase security," Mason said. "More people, better coverage, cameras, everything." They turned to Eleanor's house into a fortress. Cameras on every angle, motion sensors, bikers round the clock. It was extreme, but nobody was taking chances. 3 days passed without incident. Then 5, then a week. The threats stopped. The hate mail dried up. It seemed like maybe whoever was behind it had given up. That's when the bomb threat came. Someone called the diner and said there was an explosive device in the building. Donna evacuated everyone, customer staff, everyone, and called the police. The bomb squad came, searched for 3 hours and found nothing. "False alarm," Chen said, "but we're taking it seriously. Someone's trying to scare you." It's working, Donna admitted. Her hands shook as she poured coffee after they'd been cleared to return. Mason, maybe you should shut down the foundation, just for a while, until this blows over. I shut it down, whoever's doing this wins. And the 300 families waiting for help lose. But if something happens, nothing's going to happen. He was wrong. 2 days later, someone tried to run Harper off the road. She was driving to the grocery store when a black truck came out of nowhere, sideswiping her car and forcing her into a ditch. She wasn't hurt, shaken up, but physically fine, but the message was clear. That's it, Chen said. You're all going into protective custody. Harper, Eli, Eleanor, all of you. This isn't a request anymore. For how long? Harper asked. Until we catch whoever's doing this. What about the foundation? Mason asked. The foundation can wait. Your lives can't. Eleanor agreed to go. Eli didn't understand why they had to leave again, but he'd learned not to argue. Harper looked at Mason with eyes that said this was exactly what she'd been afraid of, that helping them would destroy his life the way Derek had destroyed hers. Don't, Mason said. Whatever you're thinking, don't. This isn't your fault. It feels like it is. It's not. It's the fault of whoever's threatening us, and we're going to catch them. The protective custody location was a safe house 3 counties over. Armed guards, secure perimeter, no visitors except law enforcement and cleared individuals. Harper and Eleanor and Eli disappeared into it like they disappeared into the Sunset Motel 6 months earlier. The difference was this time they had protection, and this time Mason wasn't letting them face it alone. I'm going with them, he told Truck. Boss, you can't. The foundation needs you. Eleanor can run it from the safe house. We've got internet, phones, everything we need. But I made a promise to Eli that he'd be safe. I'm keeping it. Truck nodded slowly. All right, then I'm running things here, but you stay in contact. Any sign of trouble, I'm mobilizing everyone. Deal. The safe house was smaller than Mason expected. 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a kitchen that had seen better days. But it was secure, and that was all that mattered. Eli clung to Mason when they arrived. You're staying. I'm staying. Promise, promise. That first night, Mason lay awake on the couch, listening to the sounds of the house settling. Eli had nightmares again. 3 times, Mason heard him cry out and heard Harper's voice soothing him back to sleep. Around 2 a.m., she came into the living room and found him staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep either, she asked. Too much to think about. She sat down in the chair across from him. Mason, I need to ask you something. Shoot, why are you really doing this? And don't give me the line about your mother or paying it forward. There's something else. I can feel it. Mason was quiet for a long time. Then he said, My mother died alone in hospice. I was on a run with the club 3 states away. By the time I got the call and made it back, she was gone. I never got to say goodbye. Never got to tell her that she was right, that helping people mattered, that the promise I made to her was the most important thing I'd ever do. Harper waited. Every time I look at Eli, I see myself. Every time I see you fighting to protect him, I see my mother. And I think maybe if I can save you, if I can make sure Eli doesn't lose his mother the way I lost mine, maybe it makes up for the fact that I wasn't there when she needed me most. Mason, you can't save everyone to make up for one person you couldn't save. I know, but I can try. Harper moved to the couch and sat beside him. She didn't say anything, just put her head on his shoulder. They stayed like that until dawn, 2 people carrying more weight than anyone should have to carry, finding a moment of peace in each other's company. The next morning, Chen called with news. We got him, the guy making the threats. Who is it? Name's Marcus Graves. Mason felt his stomach drop. Derek's lawyer. Former lawyer. Turns out Derek owed him a lot of money. When Derek got arrested, Graves lost his fee. He blamed you for that. Blamed the foundation. Decided if he couldn't get paid, he'd destroy what you built. How'd you catch him? He got sloppy, used his office computer to send the last threat. We traced the IP address, found the other letters in his desk drawer. Guys looking at multiple felonies, harassment, terroristic threats, attempted assault with a deadly weapon for the truck incident. Is it over? The threat? Yeah, the fallout, that'll take time. But Harper and Eli can come home. Mason told them the news. Eli cheered. Eleanor cried with relief. Harper just looked exhausted. I want to go home, she said quietly. I want my son to have a normal life. I want to wake up without being afraid. Is that too much to ask? No, Mason said. It's not. They returned to Eleanor's house that afternoon. The cameras were still there, the security still in place, but the suffocating fear had lifted. People in the neighborhood came out to welcome them back. Someone had planted flowers in the front yard. Another person had left a casserole on the doorstep with a note, "Welcome home. You're safe now." That night, Eli slept through without nightmares for the first time in weeks. Harper sat in the kitchen with Eleanor and Mason drinking tea and not talking, just existing in the same space without crisis or danger or fear. "I think I'm going to get a job," Harper said eventually. "I haven't worked in 8 months. I need to do something normal." "What kind of job?" Eleanor asked. "I was a paralegal before Derek. I was good at it. Maybe I can do that again." "I know some lawyers who are hiring," Jimmy said, appearing in the doorway. He'd stopped by to check on them, as had become his habit. "I can make some calls." "I'd appreciate that." Within 2 weeks, Harper had 3 job offers. She took the one at a family law firm that specialized in domestic violence cases. It felt right using her experience to help others the way she'd been helped. Eli started preschool. He made friends. He brought home drawings that actually looked happy instead of dark and scared. Slowly, carefully, they rebuilt something resembling a normal life. The foundation continued growing. By month 6, they'd helped over 500 families. By month 8, over 1,000. The network of MC chapters expanded to 37 states. Other organizations started reaching out, wanting to partner, wanting to learn how they'd built something so impactful, so fast. "We should do an event," Truck suggested. "A fundraiser. Get all the chapters together, celebrate what we've accomplished." "What kind of event?" "A ride, cross-country. Start in California, end in New York. Stop in cities along the way, meet the families we've helped raise awareness and money." Mason liked the idea. They started planning the Freedom Ride scheduled for the following spring. 50 bikers would make the journey with events in 20 cities. The goal was to raise $1 million for the foundation. News coverage was immediate. Every media outlet wanted to cover it. The story of bikers helping families had captured the national imagination, and this ride promised to be the culmination of everything they'd built. But 3 weeks before the ride was scheduled to start, Mason got a call that changed everything. "Mason, it's Sarah Coleman from the DA's office. I need to tell you something about Derek's trial." "What about it?" "The judge granted him bail pending appeal. Some technicality about how the arrest was conducted. I fought it, but the appeals court sided with Derek's new lawyer." Mason's blood went cold. "When he was released 2 hours ago. And you're just telling me now?" "I tried calling immediately. Your phone went to voicemail. I've been trying to reach you." Mason hung up and dialed Harper. No answer. He tried Eleanor. No answer. He tried the house phone. Nothing. "Truck," he shouted. "Get everyone to Eleanor's house. Now." They rode fast, breaking every speed limit. Mason's mind raced with worst-case scenarios. Derek was out. Derek knew where they lived. Derek had nothing left to lose. They arrived to find Eleanor's front door open. Mason's heart stopped. He ran inside, calling their names. The living room was empty. The kitchen was empty. He took the stairs 2 at a time and burst into Eli's room. It was empty too. "Mason," Truck called from downstairs. "Look at this." On the kitchen table was a note in Harper's handwriting. "Took Eli to the park. Back by dinner. Don't worry, we're safe. 2 of your guys are with us." Mason felt the tension drain from his body. They were safe. They were protected. Derek wouldn't try anything with witnesses around. His phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Hello, Washington. Mason Crawford. This is Linda Morrison from Channel 7 News. I'm standing outside Eleanor Harper's house, and there's quite a scene here. Can you comment on why 40 bikers just showed up looking terrified?" Mason looked out the window. News vans were pulling up. Cameras were already rolling. "No comment," he said and hung up. But the damage was done. By the time Harper and Eli returned from the park safe, happy, oblivious to the panic, the story was everywhere. Bikers panic when protected, family goes missing, false alarm reveals ongoing fear. The narrative was changing again. Now they weren't heroes. They were paranoid vigilantes living in constant fear, unable to trust the system they'd spent months working within. "This is never going to end," Harper said, watching the news coverage. "Is it? The story will always be bigger than our lives. We'll always be that family, and you'll always be that biker." "Maybe," Mason admitted, "but that doesn't mean we stop living. It just means we live differently." Eli looked up from his coloring book. Mason, can I ask you something? Sure, buddy. When I grow up, can I be like you? Mason felt that familiar crack in his chest. What do you mean? Someone who helps people. Someone brave. Eli's voice was serious in that way only children can be when they're saying something they've thought about deeply. Someone who keeps promises. Mason knelt down beside him. You can be whoever you want to be, Eli, but you're already brave. You've been brave your whole life. I was scared a lot. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means doing the right thing even when you're scared. Eli thought about this, then nodded. Like asking for soup with $1.37, even though I didn't know if it was enough. Exactly like that. Later that night, after Eli was asleep and Eleanor had gone to bed, Mason and Harper sat on the front porch. The biker guard had been reduced to one guy parked down the street enough to provide security without making the house look like a military installation. I've been thinking, Harper said, about the Freedom Ride. Yeah, I want to come. Me and Eli, we want to ride with you. Harper, it's 2,000 miles. I know, and I've spent the last year running, hiding, being afraid. I want my son to see something different. I want him to see the country without fear. I want him to meet the families we've helped and understand that what happened to us mattered, that it meant something. Mason thought about the logistics, the security concerns, the media attention it would draw. Then he thought about Eli on the back of a motorcycle seeing America as freedom instead of escape. Okay, he said, you can come. Harper smiled, and it was the first time he'd seen her smile without shadow behind it. Thank you. The Freedom Ride launched on a Saturday morning in April and with 53 motorcycles, 2 RVs for support and a national media audience watching. Harper and Eli rode in one of the RVs, safer and more comfortable than the bikes, and at every stop, they were the ones who told the story of the $1.37 soup. People cried when they heard it. In Dallas, a grandmother hugged Eli and told him he'd saved her granddaughter's life just by being brave enough to ask for help. In Chicago, a man who'd been homeless had told Mason that hearing their story had given him the courage to reach out for help instead of giving up. In each city they met families the foundation had helped. Each had their own story of crisis and rescue, fear and hope, desperation and relief. Each credited the Iron Brotherhood with saving them. By the time they reached New York, they'd raised over $2 million. Standing on a stage in Central Park with 10,000 people gathered, Mason held the microphone and looked out at the crowd. A kid asked me if $1.37 was enough for soup, he said. It wasn't enough to buy a meal, but it was more than enough to change the world. Because it taught us that asking for help isn't weakness, it's courage. And that the smallest act of kindness can ripple outward in ways we'll never fully understand. He pulled the original $1.37 from his pocket coins he'd carried every day since Eli gave them back. I'm donating this to the foundation, not for its monetary value, but for what it represents. The belief that what we have, no matter how small, is enough when we're willing to share it. The crowd erupted in applause. Eli stood beside Harper, waving at the thousands of people who'd gathered because of his simple question in a diner months ago. And Mason looked at them both, this woman who'd survived hell, and this boy who'd shown the world what courage looked like, and thought about his mother's final request to help people who couldn't help themselves. The promise was kept, the debt was paid, and the ripples would never stop spreading. The applause was still ringing in Mason's ears when his phone buzzed. Chen's name flashed on the screen. We have a situation. Derek violated parole. He's headed your way. Mason's hand tightened on the phone. How long? Could be minutes, could be hours. We lost him 20 minutes ago near the Lincoln Tunnel. He posted something on social media, said he was done letting bikers and lawyers tell him when he could see his son. Around them, 10,000 people celebrated. On stage, Harper and Eli waved to the crowd, both of them smiling, both of them finally free. And somewhere in the crowd or in the streets beyond, Derek was coming. Get them out of here, Mason told Truck. Now. What's happening? Derek's in the city. Chen lost track of him. Truck's expression hardened. We've got 50 bikes here. He won't get close. He's desperate. Desperate men do stupid things. Mason looked at Harper, still on stage, still believing she was safe. Get them to the hotel. Full security. Nobody gets in or out without clearance. Truck moved fast, gathering the core crew. Within 3 minutes, Harper and Eli were surrounded by bikers and being escorted off stage through a back exit. Harper's smile faded when she saw their faces. What's wrong? Precaution, Mason said. Derek's in the city. Her face went white. No, we were finally, I know, but we're not taking chances. Eli grabbed Mason's hand. Is Daddy here? We don't know, buddy, but we're making sure you stay safe. They made it to the hotel without incident. The presidential suite on the 20th floor became a fortress, bikers in the hallway, security at the elevators, police stationed in the lobby. Chen arrived 30 minutes later with 4 other officers. Still no sign of him, Chen said, but we're sweeping the area, every hotel, every subway station. We'll find him. What if you don't? Harper asked. Her voice was steady, but her hands shook. What if this never ends? It ends tonight, Mason said, one way or another. Eleanor sat with Eli in the bedroom reading him stories to keep him calm. But every few minutes, Eli would ask if Daddy was coming, if they were safe, if Mason was going to stay. Yes, Mason told him each time. I'm staying. An hour passed, then 2. The sun set over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Down below, the city moved on oblivious to the drama playing out 20 floors up. Mason's phone buzzed again. This time it was an unknown number. He answered. Hello, Mason? Derek's voice was calm, almost pleasant. Hell of a speech you gave today. Where are you, Derek? Close. Real close. I just want to see my son. That's all I've ever wanted. You lost that right when you put Harper in the hospital. Multiple times. That's her version. You ever think maybe she's lying? Maybe she's the problem. I've seen the hospital records. I've seen the police reports. I've seen the fear in your son's eyes when he talks about you. That's not lying, that's truth. Derek laughed a hollow sound. You think you're some kind of hero, riding in on your motorcycle saving the damsel in distress. But you're just a thug in leather who got lucky with a viral story. Maybe, but at least I don't beat women and terrify children. I never laid a hand on Eli. You didn't have to. You scared him so bad he learned to hide in closets at 3 years old. You think that doesn't count as abuse? Silence on the line. Then Derek said, I'm coming up. Room 2012. You can either let me see my son, or I'm calling every news outlet in this city and telling them how he's great Mason Crawford is holding a father hostage from his own child. You do that, I've got lawyers' evidence and a protective order. You've got nothing. I've got public sympathy. Single father trying to see his son. Bikers blocking him. Who do you think the media is going to side with? Mason looked at Harper. She was crying silently, her hands covering her mouth. Derek, listen to me. You come up here, you're getting arrested. Chen's right here, 3 other cops too. You violate that protective order, you go straight back to prison. Is that really what you want? I want my son. Then get help, get therapy, get anger management. Prove you're not the same man who hurt Harper. But you don't get to bully your way back into Eli's life. That's not how this works. You don't get to decide that. No, the courts decided it, the judge decided it, and most importantly, Eli decided it when he said you scare him. Derek's breathing got heavier. You turned him against me. He was already against you because you gave him every reason to be. I'm his father. Then act like it. Mason's voice rose. Fathers protect their kids. They don't terrify them. They don't beat their mothers. They don't make them choose between eating and feeling safe. You want to be Eli's father? Start by being someone he doesn't have to hide from. The line went dead. He's coming, Chen said, already moving. All units suspect is in the building. Lock it down. The hotel erupted into controlled chaos. Security sealed the floors. Elevators were stopped. Stairwells were monitored or burned. Every exit was covered. I want to talk to him, Harper said suddenly. Absolutely not, Mason replied. He's doing this because of me, because I left. Maybe if I just... No. Eleanor grabbed her daughter's shoulders. You are not negotiating with your abuser. You are not giving him access to you or Eli. That's final. Harper looked at Mason. What if he hurts someone trying to get to us? That's on him, not you. You didn't make him this way. You are not responsible for his choices. 20 minutes later, security spotted Derek on the 18th floor trying to talk his way past a hotel employee. Police moved in. Derek ran. They chased him through the stairwell up 2 floors, then back down. He was cornered on the 19th floor, surrounded by 5 officers. Derek Sutton, you're under arrest for violating a protective order, Chen announced. Get on the ground now. I just want to see my son, Derek yelled. That's not a crime. It is when there's a court order saying you can't. Ground now. Derek looked around at the officers at the bikers filling the hallway at the hotel's security blocking every exit. Then he looked up at the ceiling toward the 20th floor where his son was. Eli, he shouted. Eli, it's Daddy. I love you. I'm sorry. I just wanted to see you. In the suite above, Eli started crying. Make him stop. Make him stop. Harper held him close. It's okay, baby. He can't get to you. He sounds sad. He is sad, but that doesn't mean we're responsible for making him feel better. But if I just talk to him... No. Harper's voice was firm. Baby, I know you want to help. I know you have a good heart, but some people can't be helped until they help themselves. Your daddy needs to get better on his own. You can't fix him. Downstairs, Derek was on the ground being handcuffed. He was still shouting Eli's name, still proclaiming his love, still insisting he'd changed. Chen looked at Mason. This is the third violation. Judge is going to revoke bail completely. He's going away for a while. How long? Best case for him, 3 years. More likely 5 to 7 with his priors. Mason felt something loosen in his chest. 5 to 7 years, Eli would be 9 or 10. Old enough to understand. Old enough to decide for himself if he wanted contact with his father. Old enough to protect himself. It's over, he said to Harper when they got the news. Derek's going to prison. Real prison this time. Harper collapsed into a chair, her whole body shaking. It's really over. It's really over. She put her face in her hands and sobbed, not sad tears, but relief tears, the kind that come when you've been holding your breath for so long, you'd forgotten what breathing felt like. Eli climbed into her lap. Mama, why are you crying? Because we're safe, baby. We're finally safe. Because of Mason. Harper looked up at Mason, her eyes red but clear. Because of a lot of people, Mason, the police, Grandma, Jimmy, all the bikers, everyone who helped us. But yes, because Mason wouldn't let us face this alone. Eli turned to Mason. Thank you for keeping your promise. Mason knelt down. You're welcome, kid. But you kept promises, too. You promised to be brave. You promised to trust us. You did both those things. Can I tell you a secret? Sure. Eli leaned close and whispered, I'm not scared anymore. Those 5 words hit harder than any punch Mason had ever taken. The next morning, news of Derek's arrest spread fast. The media narrative shifted again, this time permanently. Derek went from victimized father to dangerous stalker arrested at charity event. The foundation received another wave of donations. The story of the $1.37 soup reached an estimated 50 million people worldwide. But for Mason, the real victory was watching Eli eat breakfast without looking over his shoulder. They stayed in New York for 2 more days, doing interviews and meeting with donors. Then they headed home. The ride back was different from the ride there, lighter, easier, like they were moving towards something instead of running from something. When they got back to Eleanor's house, Harper made an announcement. I'm buying my own place, just me and Eli. Nothing big, just a little house. Somewhere we can start fresh. You don't have to leave, Eleanor said. You're welcome here as long as you want. I know, Mom, but I need to do this. I need to prove to myself that I can stand on my own 2 feet. Within a month, she'd found a small, 2-bedroom house 3 blocks from Eleanor's. The Iron Brotherhood helped her move in. Truck assembled furniture. Smoke painted Eli's room. Dagger installed a security system. By the time they were done, the house felt like a home. Eli started kindergarten that fall. He made friends, easily invited them over for play dates, acted like a normal 5-year-old instead of a trauma survivor. His teacher called Harper one day to say he'd told the class about the time his mama was sick, and he'd asked some bikers for soup with $1.37. He said it taught him that asking for help is brave, not weak, the teacher said. I thought you should know he's inspiring other kids to speak up when they need support. Harper cried when she told Mason, he turned the worst time of our lives into a lesson about courage. He learned it from you. No, he learned it from all of us. The foundation continued growing. By the end of the first year, they'd helped over 2,000 families. By the end of the second year, over 5,000. Other organizations started copying their model. MC chapters across the country launched their own foundations. The movement spread globally. Bikers in Canada, Australia, the UK, all taking up the cause of helping families in crisis. And it all started with a 4-year-old asking if $1.37 was enough for soup. 3 years after that day in the diner, Mason got a call from a publisher. "We want to tell your story, the real story, not the sensationalized media version, but the truth about what happened and what it became. I'm not interested in making money off Harper and Eli's trauma. All proceeds go to the foundation. We're not doing this for profit. We're doing it because people need to hear this story." Mason talked to Harper about it. She agreed on one condition: Eli got to approve everything written about him. The book took 8 months to write. Eli, now 8 years old, read every chapter that mentioned him. He made changes, asked them to include that he'd been scared, but had done it anyway, that his mama had been sick, but had fought to get better, that Mason had been scary looking, but had turned out to be kind. "People need to know that help comes in unexpected packages," Eli said. "That's the whole point." The book published the following spring. It hit the bestseller list in its first week, but the real impact came from the readers. A woman in Ohio read it and finally left her abusive husband. She credited the story with giving her courage. A man in Florida read it and started a similar foundation for veterans struggling with homelessness. A teenager in California read it and started a program at her school where students could anonymously request help for their families. The ripples kept spreading. On the 5th anniversary of the diner incident, the Iron Brotherhood held a celebration. They invited every family they'd helped. Over 8,000 people showed up. The event filled an entire park. There were speeches, testimonials, tears, and laughter. Eli, now 9 years old and confident in ways that would have seemed impossible 5 years earlier, took the microphone. "When I was 4, I had $1.37 and I needed soup for my mama," he said. His voice was clear and strong. "I was scared nobody would help, but Mason did, and then lots of other people did. And now thousands of families have been helped because one biker decided to care about a hungry kid." He pulled something from his pocket. "This is my $1.37. Mason gave it back to me last year. He said it belonged to me, but I want to give it to someone else now." He walked to the edge of the stage where a woman stood with her 6-year-old daughter. The woman was a recent domestic violence survivor who'd fled with just the clothes on her back. "This is for you," Eli said, placing the coins in the little girl's hand. "It's not enough to buy much, but it's enough to remind you that people care, that asking for help is brave, that you're going to be okay." The little girl closed her fingers around the coins. "Thank you." "Pass it on when you're ready," Eli said. "That's what it's for." Mason watched from the side of the stage, his throat tight with emotion. Harper stood beside him, tears streaming down her face. "He's going to change the world," she whispered. "He already has." That night, after the celebration ended and everyone went home, Mason sat in his garage with the original $1.37. The set Eli had given back during the Freedom Ride. The set Mason had donated to the foundation. The set the foundation had returned to Eli. And the set Eli had now passed on to another child in need. Except the foundation had made replicas. Thousands of them. Little sets of coins in small pouches with cards that read, "This $1.37 represents courage, hope, and the belief that what we have, no matter how small, is enough when we're willing to share it. Pass it on." The sets were given to every family the foundation helped, and each family was encouraged to give their set to another family when they got back on their feet. Mason's phone rang. It was a woman from Seattle. "Mr. Crawford, my name is Jennifer. I received one of the $1.37 sets from a family your foundation helped. I was homeless 3 years ago. That family gave me their set and told me your story. It gave me hope. I got into a shelter, got an apartment, and today I passed my set to a single mom at the food bank. She cried when I told her what it meant." "That's exactly what it's for," Mason said. "I just wanted you to know. The ripples keep going. They don't stop." After she hung up, Mason thought about his mother, about the promise he'd made, about the truck driver who'd helped them decades ago and started a chain reaction that was still echoing across time and distance. He wondered if that truck driver knew what he'd started. Probably not. Acts of kindness rarely came with scorecards or progress reports. You just did the right thing and trusted it mattered. 10 years after the diner, Eli was 14. He'd started his own nonprofit, Soup for Hope, that taught kids how to help families in crisis. He spoke at schools across the country. He'd been interviewed on national television. He'd met presidents and celebrities. But when asked what he was most proud of, he always said the same thing, that my mama is happy and healthy, that other kids don't have to be as scared as I was, that asking for help isn't shameful anymore. Harper had remarried not to Mason, though they remained close friends, but to a gentle man named David who treated her and Eli with the kindness they deserved. She still worked at the family law firm, still helped domestic violence survivors navigate the legal system. She'd become an advocate, a voice for people who'd lost theirs. Eleanor lived long enough to see her great-grandchildren. Eli grew up, got married, had kids of his own. She passed away peacefully at 87, surrounded by family, knowing the legacy she'd helped build would outlive her. Derek served 7 years in prison. When he got out, he wrote a letter to Eli asking for forgiveness. Eli, by then 21 and mature beyond his years, met with him once. They talked for 2 hours. Eli forgave him not because Derek deserved it, but because Eli refused to carry hatred into his adult life. They never developed a close relationship. Derek had missed too much hurt too deeply. But they reached a place of peace which was more than either of them had thought possible. Mason retired from active MC leadership at 65, passing the gavel to Truck. But he never stopped being involved with the foundation. He attended every major event. He took calls from people who needed help. He told the story of the $1.37 soup to anyone who'd listen. At 73 and the 20th anniversary of that day in the diner, Mason stood on a stage in front of 30,000 people. The Iron Brotherhood Foundation had helped over 100,000 families by then. The $1.37 sets had spread to 47 countries. The story had been translated into 63 languages. Eli stood beside him, now 34, with his own children in the audience. 20 years ago, Mason said, his voice still strong despite his age. A 4-year-old boy asked if $1.37 was enough for soup. The answer was no, it wasn't enough to buy a meal, but it was more than enough to start a movement, more than enough to save lives, more than enough to prove that the smallest act of courage can echo across decades. He pulled out the original coins, worn now, from being passed hand to hand, displayed in museums, touched by thousands of people who needed to believe in hope. This isn't about money, he continued. It never was. It's about a child brave enough to ask, a mother strong enough to survive, a community willing enough to help, and a promise that when we see someone in need, we don't look away. We don't judge. We don't ask if they deserve it. We just help. The crowd erupted in applause. Eli took the microphone. My mama used to tell me that the worst day of our lives turned into the best thing that ever happened. Not because being sick and poor and scared was good, it wasn't, but because in that moment of desperation, we learned what humanity looks like when it chooses kindness over judgment. We learned that heroes don't always look like we expect. Sometimes they're rough-looking bikers in a diner. Sometimes they're tired waitresses who sneak extra food to hungry kids. Sometimes they're lawyers who work for free. Sometimes they're strangers who see a news story and decide to donate. Sometimes they're little kids brave enough to ask if $1.37 is enough. He paused, looking at his own children in the front row. It's always enough because enough isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in courage, in compassion, in the willingness to try even when the odds are against you. Mason watched Eli speak and thought about circles, closing promises, kept debts paid across generations. His mother would have been proud. That night, as Mason sat in his garage, the same garage where he'd worked on bikes and made phone calls and plotted strategies to keep Harper and Eli safe, his phone buzzed one last time. It was a video message from a 7-year-old girl in Japan. She held up coins equivalent to $1.37 and said in halting English, "My mama was sick. I asked for help. Someone helped. I want to say thank you, and I want to help someone else too." Mason smiled, his eyes damp. The ripples never stopped. And somewhere in some diner, in some city, in some corner of the world, another child was working up the courage to ask if what they had was enough. The answer would always be yes, because $1.37 was never about the money. It was about the moment a frightened child chose hope over despair, asked for help instead of suffering in silence, and trusted that somewhere in this broken world, someone would care enough to respond. And when that trust was rewarded, when that courage was met with compassion, It created something that couldn't be measured or contained or stopped. It created proof that humanity at its core is still capable of breathtaking kindness. That proof changed everything. And it all started with a 4-year-old boy, a bowl of soup, and 77 bikers who chose to care.